the Jews emerged from the 20th century speaking English or speaking Hebrew. I think the Jews that speak Hebrew, that are sitting in this land, have a very clear understanding of the moment they're in at what's at stake and what's at stake in it. There is a different story being lived out right now by Jews across the West, but let's just say especially American Jews for the sake of this conversation. And they are confused, in despair, feeling like the world is upside down, feeling for the first time, I think, since World War II, a sense of, wait, is this not the exceptional nation for the Jews? Could something catastrophic happen here as well, even if we don't yet know the shape of it? A, how are you seeing that play out from your vantage point of thousands of miles away? And B, what do you say to those people who are asking themselves those questions?
Since the beginning of the war, I have been to the US. I have done a speaking tour on the East Coast. I met a lot of Jews. And the Jews I met in the West, in the United States, in London, almost to an individual, have been more scared of this moment than Israelis. Israelis don't just see Hamas now as a threat, but the entire array of Iranian proxies, this whole Middle East that suddenly looks like a noose. And yet they're not scared. And American Jews and British Jews are. And I think the difference is it's a two-part difference. One is agency. We have all the tools of self-determination at our disposal. We can affect that future. We can fight for that future. We can fight ferociously for that future. What can American Jews do? How does American Jewry go to war for its own safety? What does that even look like? And American Jews are starting to see on the horizon these dark clouds. The actual crisis for American Jews is nothing close to the actual crisis for Israelis, but that lack of agency makes it scarier. So I think that, first of all, I've come to respect the crisis for American Jews. At the beginning, I wasn't sure if it wasn't a little bit of a sort of hysteria, people screaming on campus. That's, the media always favors the newsy part, and so everything is magnified. But I think, as I come to think about the American Jewish experience, I've come to distinguish between being American and being American liberals. And those are two very different parts of the American Jewish experience. The American Jews have basically been able to sit out the 20th century because the promise of American liberalism came true. And American Jews' great fear, always, their great anxiety has been that the American liberal promise will fail, because it'll fail them. That's, by the way, why American Jews are the most liberal minority in America, or second most liberal. I remember watching Obama's first election, watching the returns. Black Americans voted for Obama something like 87%, Jews 84%, right? And the next minority in line was at 60-something. The Jews have this love affair, this profound investment in the Black American experience. Why? Because the Black American experience is where the American liberal dream keeps going to die. And so there is a sense among American Jews, and not just Jews, it's among Americans generally in many ways, but among American Jews, that the fate of American blacks is the fate of America itself, is the fate of that promise. And so when Martin Luther King's marching on that mall, a lot of the white people around him, helping out, marching with him, are Jews. The Freedom Riders, the one white person lynched with the black Freedom Riders, is going to be a Jew. The white people in the room at the founding of the NAACP were named Moskowitz. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, the first draft, if I'm not mistaken, was actually literally written in the Religious Action Center of the Reform Movement. Jews didn't lead the movement. King led the movement. Black leadership led the movement. But Jews were desperate to be part of it and to be helpful in it and to push it and to give everything they had for it and to be those allies. And some of it just comes from moral belief, obviously, but that level of engagement is about anxiety, and it's about fear that America won't live up to its liberal promise. And what has just happened was that the Jews have begun to notice a kind of ideological takeover of that left, of that liberal left, by illiberal forces, by forces that have now taken the Jews out of the ledger of minority fighting for everybody's rights and stuck them in the powerful ledger, the side of the graph,
bad
which the bad side that has to be defeated, that has to be reined in, that has to be crushed. So the Jews are now en masse leaving the Ivy Leagues, not by choice. They're simply not being allowed in to the Ivy Leagues. The numbers of Jews in the Ivy Leagues are collapsing quickly as a policy point. And so the Jews have suddenly found themselves, no matter what they do, to be on that side of pushing that liberal America, on the evil side by this new illiberal idea. In other words, the homeland was that liberalism. The rescue from history that Israeli Jews experienced with their own country and their own strength, for American Jews was this liberal American idea. What if that's going away? And that you can see going away much, much more easily than you can see, somebody actually targeting Jews. People are targeting Jews, but that's still a marginal experience. But the potential collapse of left liberalism is not a marginal experience. That's already, the elite institutions are already having that internal war. And so Jews are terrified, not that America's going to turn on them, but that America will stop being the America that rescued them. And then where are they? Are they just in another diaspora? Because for a century they haven't been in another diaspora, they've been home.